Hey, level three. It's time for us to talk about a thing, and this is definitely for level three. So for those of you guys in level one or people watching in the future, if you're not in level three yet, don't worry about this one. Go watch some other video. All right, watch about ablatives or adjectives or something. All right, level three. I've been making references lately to fear clauses. Yes, yes, fear clauses. All right, the clause that you use when you are afraid of something. Okay. Now, you're not going to use this anytime you're expressing fear because, if you want to say something real simple like, I'm afraid of dogs, I wouldn't say that I'm not afraid of dogs, but if you wanted to say something really simple like that, you wouldn't need a whole clause. You would just have a verb that meant to fear, and you would have a direct object that was dog. That's all you would have. But a lot of times when you're afraid, you're wanting to express something more complex than just a thing, a singular thing that you're afraid of. And that's where you need a whole clause. Like if you're afraid that something is going to happen or that something's not going to happen, that's where you need an entire clause. And the entire clause is the object of your fear. So you'll have a main clause that has your verb of fearing, and then everything that you're afraid is going to happen is the ut plus a subjunctive or ne plus a subjunctive. And already you're probably thinking, wait, ut or ne plus a subjunctive, doesn't that look like a lot of other clauses that we already have? And it does, and there's a reason for this. It's because they're basically all subsets of noun clauses, right? Like I said, that whole clause is the object of your fear. That's not so different from, say, an indirect command that also uses ut or ne, where you are commanding not just a person or a thing, but you are commanding them to do something. You don't say I commanded the soldiers. You say I commanded the soldiers to, and then whatever you wanted them to do. With indirect questions, you don't use ut or ne necessarily, but still you are asking or wondering about something, and you have your question word in a subjunctive to express whatever thing that happens that you're wondering or asking about. There are even noun clauses that don't easily fit into one of these categories, but they still exist and they behave the same way. We have ut or ne plus a subjunctive to express your hope that something happens or your desire that something happens or just some other verb that can bring on a whole idea as its direct object as opposed to a single word. And that's basically what's going on with fear clauses. So you're going to be afraid that something happens or doesn't happen, and your main verb, the one that's typically in the indicative, will definitely be one of these. These are the verbs in Latin that mean to fear. So you have metuere, vereri, timere. You'll have one of them as your main clause. Or frankly, it doesn't even have to be a main clause. You'll just have one of those in some verbal form. And then the object of that fear, if it's not a single like actual noun, it's going to be this noun clause, ut or ne plus a subjunctive. Now already I'm going to have some colleagues criticizing me. They're going to say, no, it's not ut or ne plus a subjunctive, because a lot of people specifically teach this as it is ne or ut plus the subjunctive. And you might be thinking, why does that matter? Ut or ne or ut? Well, here's the thing, right? Usually ut is for the positive, ne is for the negative, but with fear clauses, if you're an English speaker, it's going to work the opposite of the way you think. If you are afraid that something is going to happen, you use ne. And if you're afraid it's not going to happen, you use ut. Let me give you some examples. I'll show you what I mean. All right? So in this sentence, right? Uxori nacte timebat nefeles suas peres morderet. All right? What this says is, at night, my wife was afraid that the cats would bite her feet. At night, my wife was afraid that the cats would bite her feet. I have a ne in there because she was afraid that it would happen. And I know that doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem intuitively correct to you, but that is the way you would phrase this. At night, my wife was afraid that the cats would bite her feet. Okay? If you want to know why ne is there, we can talk about this later if you want. But one kind of little trick, if this makes sense to you, if it doesn't, forget about it, is to use lest. At night, my wife was afraid lest the cats bite her feet. If you don't want to think about it that way, then just remember the rule, ne, because she's afraid they would bite her feet. All right? As opposed to, like, say, this one. Right? Vereor ut feles peres uxores mordeant meos petant. I am afraid that the cats won't bite her feet because they'll bite mine, or attack, right? So yeah, so in this one, I am afraid, and I have my first person present here, I am afraid that they won't bite her feet. So I used ut there, because they might bite mine instead. I don't want that. I'm sure she doesn't want them to bite my feet either, but you know what? She wants them to bite her feet less. But yeah, so that's what's going on there. So in the first sentence, my wife is afraid something will happen. In this sentence, I'm afraid that something won't happen. Okay? You'll notice I even am sticking to my sequence of tenses in this sentence. I went with the past tense, secondary sequence, imperfect tense main verb, imperfect tense subjunctive. In this one, I went primary. I went primary and used the present tense main verb and the present tense subjunctive too. Let's try one more example just so that we're not leaving anything out so we don't miss anything. I put a slightly longer one up here and it's formed a little bit differently. It says, friends, nolite ne feles peres meos moderen metuere. I didn't realize how assonant this was. But yeah, this one, it's kind of fun. Yeah, so what it says there in the first bit is, friends, do not be afraid lest the cats bite my feet. Or excuse me, this is actually perfect tense, lest the cats have bitten my feet. It is still primary sequence though, because here you'll notice my main verb is actually the negative command nolite metuere. And I even put the verb of fearing at the end, which you can do. So the nolite metuere are kind of acting like a sandwich with the fear clause in the middle here. But yeah, so it says, do not be afraid, lest the cats have bitten my feet. All right? And I even put a second one in here just for funds. Instead, this is again, it's a command, fear that I have, or that I don't have rather, because we have an oot, so it's fearing that it won't happen, that I have not any power for my phone. And before anybody says anything, I know that's not traditionally how the way whim is being used, but yeah, good luck finding a classical Latin word for electricity. All right? So in here I have the thing that I'm saying you shouldn't be afraid that it's happened, and the thing that you should be afraid if it doesn't happen, which is that I have no power for my phone, because you know those cats, they like to chew on cords. Anyway, I'm going to stop there. Hopefully that's enough examples. If it's not, hit me up in class and we will talk about this more. And of course, we're going to see at least a few examples of these while we're reading Cicero too. So, bye everybody.